Hi, I'm Joshua Winerman, a fourth-year computer science engineering student here at UC Davis.
I'm Raissa D'Souza. I'm the Associate Dean of Research for the College of Engineering, and I'm also faculty in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering and in the Computer Science Department.
What sort of inspired you to get into engineering?
My path isn't linear, so my answer is going to be a little long. I love that simple underlying rules give rise to the structure and the patterns in the world around us. So for instance, Newton's law, F equals ma, governs the motion of a gyroscope to the motion of the planets. So I've always been very drawn to these underlying simple rules. So when I chose a major in college, I chose to study physics. So my bachelor's degree and my PhD are in theoretical physics. And then I did some postdoctoral training in physics and in mathematics. And when I applied for my faculty job a long time ago, I interviewed in those fields, and I interviewed in one engineering department, and that was the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department here at UC Davis. And as they say, the rest is history. But seriously, what really drew me to change course and go to engineering at that point, I found it really refreshing that engineers were open to techniques from all fields and asking broad questions and motivated by things like, what can we do to help people? So I was really inspired when I started interacting more closely with engineers to see the way that they're helping to solve real world problems.
Can you tell me about your research focus and how you found it?
So I study complex systems, which is looking at how emergent behaviors arise from collections of simple elements. A lot of it is based in techniques from statistical physics and thermodynamics. And one of my focuses is understanding network systems. So understanding how the structure of a network and a process taking place on a network allow us to uncover underlying principles that we can then use to have insights into very broad ranges of networks, like the power grid or opinion dynamics on a social network, or viruses spreading on a biological network, or looking at transportation networks. When I was in graduate school, I was a physicist, but I was working a lot with computer scientists, and we were trying to understand information processing at the nanoscale and how it could be viewed as a computer. And I started reading some popular science books, and I read about complex systems and emergent behaviors, and I thought, that's exactly what I want to study. So I looked all over. I was in grad school at MIT, and I looked all over the Boston area for people working in complex systems, and I convinced someone in the lab for computer science at MIT to take me on as their student, and then I convinced a faculty member in theoretical physics that I would be able to do something to bridge both of these fields.
What challenges have you experienced in engineering?
So that's a really great question, and there's a myriad of challenges. And I think they change over the stage of your career, for sure. So I'd say that one thing that defined my initial journey into science and engineering was, as you can see, that I'm a female in a world where it's mostly male-dominated. So when I was in my PhD studies at MIT in physics, we had 51 students in my cohort, and 3 of them were female. So I've always been different than my cohort. And when I grew up, I was always very different as well. So my dad is from a small town in India, and my mom is from the north of Chile. And they met in grad school in the United States and immigrated. And I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a very Irish Catholic neighborhood. So all of my classmates were very blonde and blue-eyed, and my family was this unusual family. My last name is D'Souza, and we would often get physical mail sent to the O'Souza family because there were O'Sullivans and O'Flaherty's, very Irish neighborhood.
How did you overcome your experiences?
So I've always been very different, and I think that takes a little bit of courage to show up and be different, but I think every time you do it, it gives you confidence. And being a scientist, being an engineer, doing research is about asking questions that no one has ever asked before. So I think that being different gives you a unique perspective to ask new questions and different solutions than other people would have around you. So I always like to tell young students who don't look like the other people around them to embrace it, and that it can be their superpower. and enable them to view the world in a different way and ask transformative questions that have real impact.
Why did you decide to come to UC Davis?
I love UC Davis, and I've been here as a faculty member for 18 years. So it was my first faculty job. I started as an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. A few years later, once I achieved tenure, I actually switched my affiliation. So I'm half in mechanical engineering, half in computer science at this point. And the classes that I teach really span both fields. So it's nice that my department alignments are in agreement with my research interests. And the thing about UC Davis is embodied in that it's very interdisciplinary. And I've been fortunate to have collaborators in physics and math, but also political science and communications in the Primate Center and the School of Medicine. So the amazing comprehensive breadth of UC Davis is what makes the questions that you can ask without limits.
Over your time at UC Davis, what have been some of your highlights?
There's a lot of highlights of being at UC Davis. I would say that something that is so rewarding about being a faculty member is, of course, the interactions with the students on all levels. So I've had the opportunity to teach some of the brightest undergraduate students that I'm ever going to meet and see them go on to have these phenomenal careers. And then I've had the great opportunity to be the advisor for so many master's and PhD students. And it's been so rewarding to see what a close circle of friendship my students in my research group form, and lasting ties and bonds. So they end up going to one another's weddings later on in life and really having a very tight-knit circle. So the student interactions have been so incredibly rewarding. And one of the things from a more intellectual perspective that's been really rewarding are some of the major research programs that I've been able to run here at UC Davis.
What are you most proud of over the course of your engineering career?
Personally, for me, some of the things I'm most proud about are the recognitions that I've gotten from my research community. So in 2016, I was elected a fellow of the American Physical Society, and that meant a lot to me, especially having chosen the path to become an engineer, to see that my home base was recognizing my body of work and the contribution. So it was really rewarding to see that people who really understand the details and depth of my research area felt that I had exceeded and gave me a special recognition. And then in 2019, similarly, I won something called the Euler Prize from the Network Science Society. And similarly, it was just made me very proud that the people who were closest to me intellectually in my research field gave me a singular recognition.
So what advice do you have for aspiring engineers?
One thing that I find especially challenging about living in the world we are in today is that there's constantly distractions. So there's cell phones and text messages and internet flashing ads. So I find that managing distractions is one of the key things that students can do to help them be more successful and also help them understand where their interests really lie. So when I try and think about the structure of my day, I try and schedule time for deep work. So I find that having a 60-minute chunk to really dive into something technical is what I need in order to make real progress. You know, you get deeply engaged in something, and if you answer an email, it's going to take you about 15 minutes to get back to that state of flow. And often I find at the end of the hour, I'm so into what I'm doing that I stay and do it for another hour.
Our last wrap-up question here from our Instagram story is, as an associate dean and faculty member in 2 departments, what does your day-to-day look like?
Short answer, very busy, obviously. So as you say, I'm faculty in 2 departments, and I've always really worked at the boundaries of different fields. And it takes more effort because you have to know both fields well, but I find that it's a lot more rewarding to be pushing new directions that transform knowledge from different areas. So I go to a lot of faculty meetings because I'm in 2 departments. I have double the number of most. And then I took on this job of being the Associate Dean of Research a little over a year ago. So for the first 18 years that I was at Davis, I was a faculty member. And then last year, I took over a more administrative role where I'm helping other faculty in the college excel in their research programs and identify opportunities and help bring more synergy across the campus.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Professor. I really enjoyed getting to have this conversation with you, and I hope to see you sometime around in the future.
Absolutely. And it was really fun to get to exchange some ideas and talk to one of our very bright young students here and see your amazing trajectory.